What's up, guys? Welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/ProRevenge. Alright, this story's called Giving Away a Master Sergeant's Golf Clubs. So, many years ago, I was a logistician in the United States Marine Corps. My unit was headed overseas on a little mini deployment to Morocco. I was in charge of the logistics in my unit, even though I was only a corporal. This was because, first, we didn't have a staff sergeant to run the shop, and the sergeants we had were garbage at logistics, and got put to work for me. So anyway, we're gearing up to go on this little mini deployment, and the Master Sergeant, who was going to be the highest ranking enlisted, comes over to my office to chat. He starts off being real cool, and then eventually asks if he can bring his golf clubs with in one of our containers. I thought to myself that it would be wise to be on his good side since I was only a corporal and going on a deployment with his company. So I agreed, even though it was against the rules and regulations. However, everyone does it all the time. So anyway, we go to Morocco and he has his clubs. No course in sight, but he was happy hitting his balls, so I don't care. Okay. However, then everything changed. His Marines didn't request to bring enough materials to build what we were there for. They start saying I'm missing a 20-foot container, which doesn't happen to me. So I finally solved the mystery. It turns out they didn't request to bring enough and left the materials behind their office. So here we are in Africa to do a job, but we don't have enough materials. So he tries to use me as a scapegoat. Even a gunnery sergeant and a staff sergeant of his get in on this and just treat me like crap because I refuse to take the fall for their shop screw up. This goes on for the entire 2 months we are there, and we are in the middle of nowhere, so nothing for me to do but deal. Anyway, we start heading home and head back to civilization to a port, and we had to clean our gear to go back to the US as per customs and biosecurity. So we are cleaning everything. Even had to take tanks off their tracks and clean the tracks. It was a pain in the ass, but still a cool experience. The problem, however, was that the Master Sergeant kept needing to reopen containers that had been finished. Now, the problem with this was that we had to have actual US customs agents on site and use their banding seals to seal the containers, which then had to be documented with the unique serial number. Every time we had to open one, I had to beg the US customs agents to open them and let us get whatever the Master Sergeant needed, and then close it up without having to redo the cleaning. Normally, it is a solid no, but the agents were cool and we worked it out. Plus, every night, I usually ran into them at the bars and I would buy them beer. It got to the point where the agents didn't have any of their own seals left because of how many times we did it. They ended up using mine to reseal. It really made things difficult, and it was often for dumb crap. So, I finally had it. It was literally the last day we had for cleaning, and of course, the Master Sergeant wanted something else. So I asked the agents. They were really fed up with it. However, I then asked, "Do either of you guys golf?" One of them said yes. I said, "Then we need 2 containers opened." So we got the dumb crap for the Master Sergeant. Then we went to the other container where I knew the Master Sergeant's golf clubs were hiding. I opened the container, pulled out the clubs, and gave them to the agent. He looked at me and I just said, "I don't want to hear crap about opening any more containers." He was cool with it and got in his car. No issues from there on. Anyway, we get back to the States and the ship pulls in with the gear and we got it home no problem. A week later, the Master Sergeant comes into my office. He's all buddy-buddy again. He then asks where his golf clubs were. I said, "My guess is your garage or your closet?" He forces a chuckle and says, "Ha ha, okay, come on dog, where's my clubs?" I then said, "I don't know what you're talking about, Master Sergeant." He then said, "My clubs in the container?" I then explained to him that per the Department of Transportation Regulations, Chapter 3, I even had it down to the subchapter and paragraph letter, that no personal gear can be shipped inside of military cargo containers. He then starts getting mad, and I keep repeating the paragraph. He loses it, grabs me, but my shop's I don't know, something sergeant got to him quick and pulled him off before he swung on me. He never did find out what I did to his clubs, and I left the unit about 6 months later to go to my next command. Oh my gosh. Well, it just goes to show, some people are into some weird stuff, you know what I mean? For instance, Master Sergeant here, he was into hitting his own balls. This story's called Sending Trucks to the Wrong State to Screw Over a Staff Sergeant. So back when I was in my first unit, we had to ship all of our 7 tons off to get up armored. That meant, over a year or so, we shipped them all from South Carolina to Wisconsin. I was in charge of logistics at the time, so I coordinated it all and loaded the trucks. Overall, a pretty easy task. The only challenge was the documentation. Anyway, it was all going well until this new staff sergeant showed up in the motor pool. He was a butthole, just treated everyone like crap. He made my life miserable when I tried to ship these trucks. Like, I didn't want to, it wasn't overly fun. Sometimes it even required me to work on weekends, so I would have been happy just not doing it. However, I had to. HQMC ordered it, so there was no reason for him to be pissy with me. Anyway, so once he took over, shipping these trucks became a pain in the ass because he would want to micromanage because I was a lower rank. So I let him, and he wanted to sign crap. So I made up lines for him to sign. So finally, I had it with him. One day I decided, since he wanted to sign and be important, I would screw him up. So when my next big shipment, like 4 trucks, came along, I decided that instead of sending them to Wisconsin like they were supposed to go, I would send them somewhere else. I decided 29 Palms, California would be a great location. So I changed some codes on the sheets, gave them to the prick staff sergeant who made more dick comments, and signed blindly. So off we shipped these trucks. Well, a couple weeks later, the call comes in that our trucks never arrived. So the command starts getting worried that a few trucks had gone missing. They come to our shop, and we just informed them that this staff sergeant had taken charge of all the shipments lately. So they go to him, and he proudly said he had taken over, but crumbled when they asked him where the trucks were. It took them a couple of weeks, but finally a call from 29 Palms came into our command that they had these trucks show up, but nobody had claimed them. The command flipped their crap. As far as they were concerned, this stupid freaking staff sergeant got involved in crap he didn't need to get involved in and sent 4 big-ass trucks across the country instead of where they needed to be. He got told to leave the logistics to the logistics department, and I had the whole thing solved in an hour. Edit. So, for those complaining about taxpayer dollars, you obviously have not been in the military. I had butthole leaders like this cost far more than a couple of trucks because they couldn't let the experts just do their jobs. One example was we had a C-130 fly from Bahrain to Jordan to pick up cargo. I was to load it, but the senior leadership didn't think I needed to go because a random non-logistics officer was at that base to load. So the C-130 flew internationally to get cargo, was never loaded, and then flew back. So the C-130 had to be sent back to Jordan the next day to get the cargo. All because someone had to stick their nose where it didn't belong. There are tons of other stories of crappy leadership screwing up your tax dollars. After this, the staff sergeant never even stepped foot into the logistics office, so perhaps he learned a lesson. Yeah, I was about to say, that just seemed kinda wasteful to do. However, it was a good story nonetheless, and in the end, who knows, it could have ended up causing us to save tax dollars in the long run, because stupidity can cost a lot of money, especially when in positions of power. This story's called Former Mother-in-Law Used Too Much Salt in Her Food. Asked her to tone it down, she refused. So I hid her salt shakers the next time we ate there. I have suffered from chronic migraine since I was a kid. Something important for every migraine sufferer to know are their triggers. Triggers are the things in your life that are most likely to start a migraine. For some, it may be extreme heat. For others, it's stress. And for me, it's salt. I can't have a lot, and if I do, a migraine will start almost right away. Due to this, I can only have Chinese food every once in a while, and I have to be very careful to read labels for sodium content. Migraines hurt like a mother-father, but can also send me to the ER, which is expensive. My ex-mother-in-law, I'll call her Karen, loved to cook and added too much salt to everything. It didn't take me long to notice that right after eating a meal prepared by her, my head would start beating like a drum. We had dinner with them every Sunday, so my ex went to Karen, explained my situation, and asked her to tone down the salt. Karen was not happy. She thought changing the ingredients of her food would alter the taste too much. She agreed to cut back, but the very next time we had dinner with them, I went home feeling like my head was going to explode, and I knew she hadn't. My wife asked her about it later, and Karen said she'd originally cut the salt, but after tasting it, decided it wasn't flavorful enough and added it back in. She told my wife she wouldn't sacrifice flavor for me, so that's the last time we had Sunday dinner there. Months later, we had to go there for a birthday party. We arrived early, hours from dinner, so Karen hadn't yet started cooking. I was in the kitchen getting a beverage and saw her precious salt shaker sitting on the counter. I picked it up, went into the pantry, and hid it behind some boxes of cereal. While there, I saw the round refill container. Grabbed that and hid it too. Hours later, Karen is cooking and we hear a commotion. She's upset she can't find her salt shaker. She goes into the pantry complaining that she also can't find the large container either. My wife and I were sitting outside, acting like nothing was out of the ordinary. She ended up cooking all the dishes without salt and complained the whole time about how terrible everything tasted. Karen was in a very bad mood as everyone dished up. It wasn't long before they started complimenting her on the food. People were saying it was some of the best she'd ever made, and from her face, you could see she was shocked to hear that. Several people said to her, "This is great! Did you tone down the salt? You use a lot, you know. This tastes like you used the perfect amount." To which Karen hissed, "It has no salt because I can't find my shakers." Nobody was bothered by this. They just nodded and agreed it was amazing. The more they complimented her, the more upset she got. For some reason, she never thought to ask anyone if they had purposely taken them. We ate and then got up to leave not long afterward. On our way out, we went by the kitchen to take some leftovers home. While there, I pulled the salt shaker and container out, put them in our bag, took them home, and trashed them. It was the first time I had eaten a meal with that family and not gone home with a migraine. Wow, okay, so I do understand that too much salt in food can taste really bad, but it's also worth noting that salt adds flavor. Not just saltiness, but it brings out the flavor in a lot of other things. So food with a little bit of salt can be good, but no salt at all in a dish that originally used a lot of salt? That's something weird. Okay, last story is called Screaming Kid on Plane. Years ago, a guy that worked with us died. His wife was pissed. "He'd promised we'd travel someday, and now what?" I went back to the office and decided I was traveling while I could. I was 40. I booked a flight to Aruba. On the plane from LAX to Miami, this kid, about 3, kept screaming the entire flight. His parents refused to intervene, to the point the entire plane was angry. The flight crew offered to get him soda, crackers, peanut peanuts. Both the parents believed it would encourage him to learn to throw fits when he wanted to. It was pretty contentious between everyone talking to the crew, asking to speak to the captain, etc. I was fuming inside. We got to Miami and everyone basically rushed away. After a few hours, it was time to board for Aruba, and who should show up out of nowhere? Yep, the parents and the crying kid, all the way to Aruba. Some of the people from LA to Miami were there, and we all vented about the absolute ridiculousness of the parents letting the kid cry and whine and throw a tantrum for hours without at least swatting him. 1 week in absolute solitude. I promised all my coworkers, no women. This was a me relaxing and not chasing. Sunday, 1 week later rolls around and the same faces show up that we flew in with. We're sharing stories about four-wheeler rides, scuba trips, etc. Here they come. The 3 people we were glad we'd never see again. The kid is still freaking whining. The man comes up to me and says, "Hell of a place, eh? Do you know what time it is? My wife packed my watch." It was 2:30 and I said, "Oh, it's 1:30. We're all here early to do the duty-free thing." And he thanked me and headed to the food area with his wife and screaming Luigi. As soon as they were around the corner, these 2 girls came running over. "Did you just lie to that man?" I said, "I couldn't take another flight with him." And every single person got up and high-fives me. Then it got tense. As we were boarding the plane, there was a possibility that the family would somehow show up. All eyes on the corner, hoping no one would come around running, "Hold the door!" etc. When we were all seated and the door was pulled closed after the longest 10 minutes of our lifetimes, we all cheered. High fives all around again. I was bought a drink. I had to explain that I don't drink because I heard the talk of the others wanting to do that too. Nope, just never liked it. As we pulled back, we could see them looking out the window. I knew they couldn't see me, but I was still hiding in my seat. In Miami, I was hugged by a bunch of passengers. I still remember the emotions when they walked to the food court. It was crappy, but I'm okay with that. Okay, you know what? If they missed the flight, that is 100% on them, because I am 100% certain that they do announcements before the gate closes. "Oh, the gate's closing in 10 minutes. Make sure you get your ass over here." And people don't miss their flights. Or that's how it's supposed to work, so if they missed it, that's on them. And they're supposed to be watching the clock. Come on. What? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.